Wife kept her husband from cheating. Just sex, exclaimed Tom, glancing at the display that showed the flight schedule. Dallas to Portland, flight 1324, delayed. His wife, Julie, stood beside him, holding his hand. She looked at him, then at the screen, and let out a quiet groan. This was how the entire trip went on. First, they were rescheduled because of bad weather. They were stuck in Shreveport, for heaven's sake. Then the flight to Dallas was 2 hours late, and they missed the next flight. Nothing else happened until the next afternoon. The temperature was about what is expected in heads, and it was impossible to go outside. It was also bad enough that their luggage was somewhere between God knows where and here. Because of the heat, Julie dressed very lightly, no bra and a light blouse. In her carry-on bag was a skirt and top that she didn't want to wear on the airplane, as they were meant to tease her husband. What was supposed to be a combination business trip and vacation was not shaping up well. "I swear to God, the next time we go anywhere, we'll drive," muttered Tom. "That's 2,555 miles one way. At least we're together." Julie squeezed his hand. Julie always found a way to make the best of any situation, and he smiled at her. It was very hot outside now, and he was grateful to be inside with the air conditioning running. Julie was wearing a light sleeveless blouse and blue jeans that made it clear she was clearly a woman. Tom liked the fact that almost everywhere they went, there were leering glances thrown at her, but he had developed the habit of holding her hand most of the time. It was just a way of letting those around him know that he had a claim on her. Immediately, postponed changed to canceled. "This can't be happening," they both said almost simultaneously. They headed over to the counter to see what was going on. The cab ride to the hotel they were put in took only 20 minutes, but it was also a surprise. They had expected the hotel to be closer. Something was going on. Some scheduling issues, weather, God knows what. Maybe systems failed. So by the time they got to the airline clerk, all the nearby hotels were packed with people with delays. The cab driver, upon hearing where they were going, raised his eyebrows, smirked, and suddenly became very talkative, asking all sorts of personal questions. He was too enthusiastic, which seemed odd. "Enjoy yourselves, guys, and give me a call if you need a ride somewhere, or anything else. Anything." The young cabbie handed Tom a business card and grinned broadly as he picked up the 2 light bags they were carrying from the trunk and carried them into the building. He also gave Julie several hard looks from head to toe, which couldn't help but annoy Tom. Tom only looked at him when he heard the last remark. It sounded strange, but maybe the man was just being polite. Or maybe he was hoping for a good tip. There was a huge sign hanging in the lobby welcoming some group. They ignored it, walked up to the counter, and checked in. They saw a few couples relaxing in a nice area near the lobby. There was a pool outside with a few other people relaxing in it. They were both tired and just wanted to check in, so they didn't pay attention. "Hey, this looks like a pretty nice place," said Tom to Julie. "Great. Maybe things are getting better?" She smiled at him as he pulled out a key card, and they took the elevator to the 4th floor. "Wow!" exclaimed Tom as they opened the door. There was a huge flat-screen TV, a hot tub in the corner, a couch, a table, chairs, and a huge bed. There was even a bar with a wide selection of food. There were large mirrors hanging on the wall by the bed, which looked odd. "Oh my God!" squealed Julie, jumping on the bed and sprawling out on it. Tom's mind went into a state of arousal at this. She always had that effect on him. The light blouse barely concealed the shape of her breasts without a bra. She'd done without one because it was so warm outside, and that certainly contributed to the way she looked. But now that her luggage was gone, and there was no hope of catching up, she stayed in what she was wearing except for a few things in her carry-on bag. He jumped onto her bed, kissed her, and hugged her. "Let's go see if we can find some food," he told her. "Let me change. I have a skirt and top in my carry-on bag." She jumped up and went into the bathroom. When she came out, she was wearing a short red skirt and the same top he loved so much. It was the first time she'd worn it on the whole trip. They had planned to do some dancing, but because of all the turmoil, they never got to do it. Her outfit wasn't her usual daytime outfit. The skirt was so short that she had to sit down carefully, and the top wasn't roomy enough to accommodate even her average-sized breasts. But there was nothing to be done about it. It was all she had. "You look well enough to eat, darling," he told her. "Maybe later?" She threw him an angry look. Several couples were in line, waiting for a seat in the small cafe downstairs. Tom looked around. They were all in their 20s and 30s, which surprised him a little. Usually there were all kinds of people here, young, old, heavy-set, everything imaginable. The people around here were all pretty young, and they all seemed to be dressed to attract attention. "This place is definitely different. It looks more like some kind of spa resort than a hotel," he whispered to Julie. "Hey, you two!" Tom turned around. There stood a tall man and a young woman of much smaller stature. "Oh, hi!" They shook hands and introduced themselves as Hans and Katrina. They both had some kind of accent that Tom couldn't identify. "Are you guys here for the party?" asked Hans. Tom noticed that the man held Julie's hand much longer than would be considered polite. "To the party?" "What party?" asked Tom, reaching for Julie's hand, and Hans released it. "There's a band playing in a private living room tonight. Should be great," said Hans. Tom noticed Hans scrutinizing Julie from head to toe, but he was used to that by now, as many men looked at her twice each. Tom looked at Julie and realized that the top she was wearing showed her breasts, since she didn't have a bra with her. Tom then looked at Katrina. Her outfit was as thin as Julie's, and her breasts were much larger. There was clearly no bra, and it occurred to Tom that it had probably been enlarged. Her bust seemed too high and firm to be natural. He blushed when he realized she'd caught his eye, but she only smirked. "A party? Why not?" "Of course we can go," Tom said quickly to Hans. "Great! We'd love to see you there." Just then, a waitress came over and ushered them to a table. Back in the room, Julie was looking at the small advertising magazines that were on the table. "Hey, there's a spa here. Did you know about it?" she asked. "I had no idea. What do they have?" He walked over and peered over her shoulder. "They have a sauna, hot tub, bathhouse, and massage services. They do seaweed wraps and all sorts of other treatments. It's a really nice place. Maybe I'll buy you a treatment until the weather gets bad between here and Portland. We're not going anywhere." Tom walked over and turned on the TV. The announcer was talking about the multiple tornadoes that had caused a big commotion in the city. The screen showed pictures of a pile of rubble that had once been houses. Sighing, he went back and checked the flyers. Why not? He picked up the phone and dialed the front desk. "Yes, I want you to give her all the jobs," Julie heard him say. "Jesus, $300. You're worth it." Hanging up the phone, he smirked at Julie. "Really? What did you get me?" she asked. "They said they have a 3-hour package that includes everything you need: a hot tub, scrub, sauna, some sort of wrap, and a massage. After all, we're kind of on vacation. We might as well enjoy it." He grinned. "Thanks, honey. What are you going to do while I'm getting my treatments?" "I think I'm going to go to the bar and get myself something to drink." Tom was sitting at the bar when he looked up and saw Hans enter the lounge. Noticing Tom, he headed over to him and sat down. "So where is your lovely wife?" he asked. "I bought her one of those spa treatments." "Really? I took Katrina out yesterday. It's a real high." "Did she like it?" asked Tom. "Sure, she said they do everything." Hans laughed. They talked for a few minutes, and then Hans asked Tom if he wanted to go up to their room. "I have something to drink there. It's better than paying $5.50 for a bottle here. I think they have small shot glasses, too." He grinned. They got up and headed for his room. As soon as they entered the room, Tom noticed that the hot tub in their room was full. He was about to take a seat on the couch when Katrina walked in, wiping her hair with a towel. She was completely unclothed. Tom felt his face redden. Her breasts seemed to be made up of implants. Tom blushed brightly, not knowing what to say or do. "Oh, hello, Tom. Where's Julie?" she asked, acting as if being naked in front of a stranger was perfectly normal. "She's, at the spa." Tom stuttered. He almost couldn't believe it. Katrina was gorgeous and acting completely unconcerned about being naked. "Oh, cool. I got one of those yesterday. These guys do everything." She laughed and lowered herself into one of the chairs across from him. She then lifted one leg and started fiddling with her toenails, looking up at him and giving him a wicked grin. "Oh, my God." Tom blushed and averted his eyes. He tried to stare at the wall. Hans only laughed. "Don't worry about Katrina. She's not the skittish type. She was dancing at the nightclub when we met," said Hans, holding out a drink to Tom. "So you guys are nudists?" asked Tom, trying hard not to look at Katrina. He fought with himself to keep himself from getting aroused. In his entire life, he'd never seen a woman knowingly expose herself, except for a few times on stage, when he'd watched the dancers, and when Julie had teased him at home. "Sometimes." Hans snorted. Katrina jumped to her feet and walked over to the suitcase by the bed and pulled out an opaque top and shorts, mercifully pulling them on. "It'll be a couple hours before the staff is done with your wife. Let's go down to the pool," she said. She didn't have her swimsuit on, and Tom noticed that. The three of them grabbed their drinks and headed for the elevators. "Is this the right place to go to the spa?" asked Julie to the woman sitting behind the counter. The directions said to go to the first floor, directly from the pool. "Are you Julie?" the woman asked. "Yes, that's me." "Good. Go on back. They're waiting for you." Julie opened the door to a long hallway, from which a young woman came out to greet her. "Hi, my name is Sarah. I'll be overseeing your preparations today." She smiled broadly at Julie. Just then, another woman in a white robe came out and headed into the next room, led by a man in a dark bathing suit. The woman smiled and nodded. A man? In a spa, dressed like that? Wearing nothing but a bathing suit? It struck her as odd, but then she decided the place must be co-ed. However, the guy looked too young to be the woman's husband. "Preparation? What's that part?" asked Julie. "It's the hot bath and bathing. Go and soak for 10 minutes. Then a servant will come to give you a bath." "You mean one of them will be taking the bath?" asked Julie, surprised. "Yes, of course," replied Sarah with a smile. Julie stepped inside. The huge hot tub looked magnificent. She undressed and slipped inside. It was very hot in there, which she loved. After a few minutes, she heard the door open and peeked in. Standing there was the same young man she had seen before, dressed only in tight black swim trunks. Julie opened her mouth to say something, since she was naked in the hot tub, but he immediately stepped in and closed the door. She tried to duck under the water, but the tub was too small for her to hide completely. "Hi, my name is Roland. Ready for a body scrub?" He had a heavy accent and acted as if walking in on a naked woman was commonplace. "What? Where's the girl?" Julie crossed her arms over her chest. This was a complete surprise. "She's with other clients right now. I'll be your escort today." Roland smiled. "But, do you want to take a bath? Do you—" Her voice broke. She didn't know what to say. "A man? Yes, I do it all the time. It's just part of my job. Your husband booked a full spa treatment. Is that what it says here? We didn't make a mistake?" He lowered his gaze to the notepad in his hand. "Tom? Does he know? Ah, that little devil." Julie inwardly chuckled at the thought. This sort of thing he would certainly do. She remembered all the times they'd gone clubbing together, and Tom liked her to wear attention-getting clothes. "Okay, I guess it's no big deal." "What do you want me to do?" she asked Roland. Go into the shower stall. I'll bathe you, with me needing to be in there with you. Then we'll rinse off the water. Then we'll go into the sauna briefly, and then into the room where they do the wraps. We have both seaweed wraps and sugaring, depending on what you prefer." He smiled. Julie glanced at the shower stall a few feet away, then back at Roland. He was looking at her expectantly, so she took a deep breath, climbed the steps out of the tub, and went into the shower. She tried to force herself not to cover her breasts, but Roland had already turned away and was gathering rags to wash. He turned on the water. It was warm and nice to the touch, then got in with her and started scrubbing her with a washcloth, starting with her head. The water jet was very strong and she couldn't see very well. He worked her back and legs, and then she felt rather than saw him move to her front. She felt the cloth move across her breasts and further down, making her flinch for a moment. "Are you okay?" asked Roland, feeling her tense at his touch. "Yeah, I'm fine." She tried to relax, assuring herself that he was only bathing her. Finally, the flow of water stopped, and she opened her eyes. Roland stepped away to get large white towels, returned, and began to wipe her body. His hands were everywhere again, but at least through the towel. He then took one of the large white robes and held it out for her to put on. This part was totally unexpected, but the sensation was pleasant. Julie thought it was something extraordinary. Her Tom really going out of his way to please her after the trip had gone so badly. Then Roland led her into a small sauna, which was different in that it only accommodated one person. She felt the warmth spreading through her body. Soon the bell rang and the door opened. Roland led her into the next room, and as they headed there, another woman came out of it, heading back to the main locker room. Her towel was wrapped around her waist, and her bare breasts swayed freely as she walked. Julie figured there was definitely no emphasis on modesty here. In the next room was a long table covered with a sheet, and a small table off to the side with some containers on it. "Seaweed or sugar wrap?" She heard a woman's voice behind her. Looking over, she saw the same Sarah standing there. Her and Roland at the same time? That was obviously the plan. Julie shrugged. She was already naked in front of the guy, and he hadn't even changed his facial expression. Probably seaweed. The two of them began to turn her one way and another, wrapping her tightly. It wasn't actually that bad. She glanced at Roland a few times, and he seemed more engrossed in what he was doing than paying attention to her body. It occurred to her that he was probably of a different orientation, and she managed to suppress a giggle at the thought. After what seemed like quite some time had passed, they began to remove the wrap and then led her to another shower stall for a quick rinse. This time Sarah was wiping off with a large soft towel. Roland was nowhere to be seen. "Good. Next up will be a full-body massage. Follow me, please." She handed Julie another robe. Sarah led her further down the hall. Julie was looking forward to this part. She didn't get massages often, but she loved it. Sarah had Julie lie down on the table and helped her remove her robe. She then covered her with a thin drape. The table was heated and felt great, so Julie settled on it, putting her face in a cradle. She felt Sarah's hands begin to work her muscles. Obviously, she was great. Julie began to sink into a dreamy state. The sheet was partially pulled back and strokes were passed down the length of her body over and over again. It was sensual and soothing at the same time. When his hands slid down the sides of her breasts, it felt so good that she didn't even mind it. Then Julie felt Sarah's gentle fingers touch her lower back. It was almost a shock, and she started to protest, but the sensation was so pleasurable that she relaxed and let herself have it. From the repetitive movements, the sensations inside her began to build up. "Okay, sweetheart. Ready to roll over?" Julie woke up in shock. The voice was a man's. She turned to look. It was Roland. He had a disarming smile playing on his face. He had a drape in his hands, and he held it up for her to roll over. Not knowing what else to do, Julie rolled over, and Roland covered her with the sheet. Julie's thoughts reeled. She had just been lying on her stomach and he was already standing at the foot of the table and caressing her body. She thought it was Sarah, and even if that happened it would be bad, but a man she didn't even know. What would she tell her husband, Tom? Did he know about it? He must have called there and set it up. "Your husband ordered a full course of treatment today, so should I go ahead?" Roland asked, as if sensing her hesitation. "Yes, but let's limit it to a regular massage, okay?" "Okay, whatever you say." He got down to business again, at one point covering her breasts with a towel as he worked on her stomach. He was also careful with her lower body and never let his hands get further than mid-thigh, so Julie began to relax again. "Well, it was a pleasure servicing you today. Perhaps we can meet again before your stay is over, and perhaps we'll see you at the dance and party tonight." "What dance and party?" she asked. Julie was already sitting up, pulling the sheet over herself. Tom had mentioned there would be dancing, but hadn't said anything about a party. "Your band. There's a big dance tonight. I just assumed you'd be going." "Band? What band?" "The club. The Swingers Club. You're here for the convention, aren't you?" "What? No. My husband and our flight was delayed and they put us up here." It was beginning to dawn on Julie what was going on. It had gotten to Roland, too. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I thought—" "It's okay. Nothing terrible has happened. Please, I need to get dressed," she told him. He nodded and quickly left the room. Julie got dressed and went in search of Tom. She knew she had to explain all of this to him somehow and hope he would understand. At least she wasn't having sex, not really. It had all just happened. Tom sat by the pool and couldn't believe his eyes. They had barely gotten there and settled into a lounger before he noticed a woman on the other end of the pool in just a bikini. Katrina found the lounger, pulled her top off almost immediately, and leaned back to read a book. Looking around, he realized she wasn't alone. At the far edge, some woman was rubbing suntan lotion on a prostrate guy. She seemed to be groping his swim trunks more than applying the lotion. "Honey?" He heard behind him and looked up to see Julie approaching. He smiled and was about to ask how the treatment went when he noticed the look on her face. "We need to talk," she began, then looked around. She noticed one woman who had her breasts exposed and her eyes widened. She then looked around and began to realize. "Whoa!" exclaimed Tom, pulling himself up as he realized what Julie looked like. She wasn't wearing a bra, as all of her bras were in her lost luggage. The oil that hadn't been washed off her made the thin material of her blouse seem to stick to her, becoming almost transparent on her stomach. "Jesus, baby, you look so sexy." He told her that, making her face flush. "Take me to our room, honey." He stood up. Realizing something was wrong, Tom took her hand, and they walked quickly to the elevator. Barely had the door to their room closed when she turned to him. "Do you know where we are, Tom?" "What's going on here?" she asked. "Well, yes, I do. What's happened? Did something happen?" "We're at a swingers meeting, a convention, something like that," she purred. "What?" "Swingers. You know, wife swappers, people who want to have sex with other people." "Are you sure?" Tom was already starting to get suspicious. "Yes, I'm totally sure. We have to get out of here." "We can't. We have nowhere to go, and we have a plane tomorrow." "And that couple, Hans and Katrina, I think they have plans for us," she said. "Yeah, I kind of figured that out. I was just in their room." What were you doing?" "Nothing. I was just having a drink, but Katrina, came out of the shower with no clothes on." "What was she doing? Was she trying to do something?" "No, not really. All she did was wipe herself off and then get dressed. I didn't do anything. I didn't even know what to say. They acted like it was normal. I guess it is for them. Well, we don't have to do anything. We can just stay away from these people." "I guess, if you say so." We can just order room service food, said Julie. Why? We can go out to eat, do whatever we want. We don't have to do anything with anyone. What if they try anything? We'll just say no thanks. But tell me, why are you acting like a prude? Back home at Rooster Rock, you went topless, and some of the things you're wearing are interesting. Tom laughed. That's different. And what's so special about that? Tom was already grinning. Out there on the street, none of them were planning on having sex with me. Or with you, for that matter. Oh, I think that's what some of them were thinking. He put his arms around her and pushed her back onto the bed. Soon, Tom had her clothes off. So, what's that stuff around you? Some kind of lotion or something? It's massage oil. How did it get here? I have something to tell you, she replied. The end! Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.